This is Michael McKeon, aka Morris Fletcher, aka Chuck McGill. You know who I am. But it's time for Inside the Gilliverse with Eric Broadbent.
You're watching Inside the Gilliverse, talking all things Breaking Bad, El Camino, and Better Call Saul. Brought to you by the Royal Baubles Collection at bobbleheads.com. For all your favorite characters from the Gilliverse, shop the Royal Baubles Collection at bobbleheads.com. Also brought to you by Rode Microphones, the official microphone supplier of Inside the Gilliverse. See their entire lineup today at rode.com. Now please welcome your host, Eric Broadbent.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Season 3, Episode 7 of Inside the Gilliverse, talking all things Breaking Bad, El Camino, and Better Call Saul. My name is Eric Broadbent, and it comes with extreme pleasure to welcome back tonight's guest, making his second appearance here on the program, one of the geniuses behind the cinematic brilliance of Better Call Saul. You know him, DP of photography, Marshall Adams. I'm going to bring him on right now. Marshall, how are you, my friend? Welcome back.
I'm doing great, Eric. Thanks so much for having me. It's nice to be back.
Oh, awesome. It's good. It's great to have you. And this is on the final season of Better Call Saul, and sadly, probably the final season of this podcast here as well, too, which is bittersweet. I mean, I hate to see Better Call Saul end, and I love doing this as well, too, but just it's time consuming. There's no doubt about it, but it's a labor of love, as we all know.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, the show this season was quite an experience. You know, we were at it for 12 months, which was more than double what we've ever done before. So
yeah,
it was a heck of a ride. But and people are gonna just be blown away by this season. It's really ramped up. So
that's good. That's good. I'm gonna have some questions for you later on in the program about taking yourself out of the element of working behind the camera and just as a fan of the show, because I know everyone that's part of this show is not just takes a paycheck home at the end of the day. They are fans. After they're not part of the show anymore, they're still fans. I know I've talked to a lot of people that are no longer on the show, and they love it just as much as we all do. So it runs deep to the heart with all of you, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you want to know what's going on with those characters. I mean, Bob and Ray are just so fantastic, and all of the actors are incredible. And the writing, as you've said many times, it's just an incredible thing to watch and see. And I mean, it was the only show I've ever been on where literally the moment the scripts come out, people are reading them instantly because they want to know what's going on, what's happening next, you know.
Like just like trying to binge watch your favorite thing on TV, they have to have the script and binge every word of it, right?
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. Well, I read something the other day. I didn't know about this. With being 13 episodes this year, is there alternating duties for DP this season?
Yeah. So this season, Peter and Vince actually, we talked about it a number of months ago, or actually 2 years ago, that Paul would move up, the camera operator who's been on the show since actually before me, since season 2, would move up and shoot the even number of episodes. And it was a great opportunity for him, and he's got a fantastic eye. And yeah, Paul Donaghy is his name, and fantastic. You can hope you're going to have him on one of these days.
That'd be nice. That'd be nice. Yeah, feel free to share my contact information with him. To say Eric would love to have you. That way, just give him my cell phone number, whatever, and say he'd love to have you. That'd be great.
Cool. I will. Absolutely. That's a great idea. Very cool.
Well, I know in the editing world, we had Chris on the show a while back, and I know in the editing department, they're leapfrogging from episode to episode. So one can do this one can do this one. Does that happen in the filming world? Like, are you guys doing multiple shoots at the same time, or no?
No. We stick to one pretty much. So when we start prep, I mean, there's a little bit that's driven by location availability, sometimes actor availability, et cetera, et cetera. But for the most part, we stick with the episode at hand. So we prep it all the way through, and then we shoot it all the way through. Number one being the rare kind of exception to that, where the whole teaser we pushed off for, must have been 6 months before we actually went back and did the teaser for episode 1. So
that teaser as well too. You know, just had everyone hanging by their edges of their seats, and then of course, you know, it got everybody out there with their theories and analyzing every scene and the evidence numbers. You know, when that's going to air. I mean, do you get fascinated by that? By some of the sleuths that are out there that put these two and twos together?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of given up on being blown away by those guys. It never ceases to amaze me, the stuff they figure out. I mean, I remember season 3, something I wasn't even aware of. You know, the first letter of each episode was an anagram for Gus's back, and they thought they were going to reveal it to the audience, you know, right before it started airing, and then, you know, or right before they started season 4, and they figured it out the night of the last episode. They figured it out.
Isn't that something?
Oh my gosh, just incredible.
Well, I think there's probably only 2 people on the planet, maybe under a rock somewhere, that don't know what's coming this season with a spoiler that was revealed. And I won't say it here because I don't want to spoil it for those last 2 people on the planet that don't know this. But I think maybe some of that information, you know, who I'm referring about, 2 important characters that may show up. And I think it was almost leaked in case, because it was too hard to keep that one a secret anyway. So we're going to see some real surprises this season. It's amazing seeing how the Breaking Bad world is crossing over, or this one's crossing over into, they're sharing timelines, is what I'm trying to say. It's amazing. Yeah. Well, there's definitely quite a bit, you know, of things that are happening on the same timeline at this point. And, you know, we can't avoid that. Not to mention, I mean, that's kind of where Saul was headed anyway the whole time, you know. Mm-hmm.
I had to see him kind of become Saul Goodman, you know, from head to toe. So he's really there.
Exactly. Well, speaking, this is kind of nice when we're talking about the odd number episodes that you're doing. So 1, 3, 5, so on and so forth. Am I counting correctly? Yeah, I think I'm counting correctly. To think for a second. It's easier to count by 2s. But anyways, regardless, doing episode 3, I happened to watch that episode 2 days late. And I know I'm going to get a flack from all our viewers. How that's sacrilegious not watching an episode when it's airing. But I was away. I didn't get to see it. And I stayed off of social media for a couple of days because I did go on for a second and I saw something and I was like, oh no, please tell me that's not true. Didn't get the full spoiler, but I got a hint of it. But what I'm trying to get at here with this one, it must have been quite the, well, first of all, I was blown away by that episode. And we'll talk about some of the tricks and whatnot. And I know there's an audio question coming up here shortly too from Karina, our executive producer. She's going to ask you about some of the tricks behind that one. But what was it like to be part of such a power? I know there's going to be more powerhouses in this season, but what was it like being part of that powerful episode?
It was a wild ride. I mean, I when I first read that episode, it was like nothing I'd ever read. Nothing I'd ever read. You know, it was incredible. So I mean, I still call it probably the biggest episode of television, which is probably not true, but that I've ever done. And I mean, with the tanker and the motion control that we did for the teaser, and I mean, there was just so many giant things that actually you don't really even notice, hopefully, but yeah, it was really big and powerful. I mean, we knew that, you know, that it was coming to a finale for this character, and, you know, where he was headed, and everybody wanted to know what was going to happen, and it was, you know, he did it on his own terms. So I thought, actually, got my nacho shirt on.
Oh, let's have a look. That's great. I love it.
Anyway,
in his honor.
Absolutely.
I had texted him just before the show today, and I told him that you were coming on tonight. I said, Marshall's going to be joining me in a couple hours. And I said, we'll be talking about you all night, bad, of course. And I said, no, just kidding. But he said his exact words were, please send you his love. So Michael sends his love for sure.
He's such a good guy. I mean, he's such a great heart, you know, and I think really honestly, that's what makes him so good, especially as Nacho, because he's not just a gangster. He's a gangster that's got this thing right under the surface, and you can see it in his eyes. You can see it that he's kind of holding back the waterfall that's about to start. You know, he just he's very sensitive and in touch guy. So I love working with him. He's so good. Such a pleasure to work with.
It must be. Well, when he was here last week, it was just last Friday, we were talking about the potential, Emmy love, hopefully, that we might see this season. I mean, we talk about going out with a bang, no pun intended. I mean, from him to every single person, yourself, all the cast and crew has some serious Emmy potential here. Is it something you'd hope to see maybe a bit of Emmy love this year?
You know what? I more than anything, I want to see Ray get a nomination and a win because she deserves it. And it's been a long time coming. And I don't know why everybody's been avoiding the issue for so long. But yeah, but no, absolutely. I mean, any one of these episodes, I mean, Michael's performance in episodes 2 and 3 has was a sight to behold. So, I mean, it's like I said, the whole season has just been, it's just, ramped up much bigger than we've ever done before. So it's got a long ways to go.
Well, there's been a lot of claim to being bigger and badder than anything we've seen before. So I think we're getting that so far with the 3 episodes in. We're on our 4th coming up this Monday. 3 extra episodes this season to choose from. So there's extra Emmy potential. So fingers crossed. And yeah, I like what you say about Ray as well too. Vince had said something along the lines of like one of the greatest hidden discoveries ever. Just like it's just amazing what she's done. Everyone loves working with her, and she's starting to get a little scary too. The Kim Wexler.
Oh yeah. Everybody thought it was Bob's character, that it was Jimmy that dragged her over the edge, and it's you come to find out that it's maybe not be so such a foregone conclusion that was what it was about. So yeah.
You're even seeing Jimmy from time to time now as well, kind of cowering a little bit, like he's sure that's what we want to do, and yeah, okay, I guess that's what we're doing, and he's now along for the ride.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, he really isn't, definitely not in control like he used to be.
No. And I think what we'll do is we'll change some things up around here a little bit. I'm going to jump over to some audio questions we have. So we have 3 audio questions. So I'll play those for you. And the first one I was alluding to was from Karina. This is about episode 3. And this is about the opening sequence, which I know you took some great pride in. And after she asked that question, you can talk about that between you and Gordon, how, this all came to be. But let's have a listen to Karina's question. Here we go.
Hi, Marshall. This is Karina. So happy to have you back on the show. Can you tell us more details of that incredible opening shot in episode 3, Rockin' Hard Place, with the piece of glass and the desert bluebell? I'm assuming that's a desert bluebell. Sounds like it was quite a challenge.
So yeah, the biggest challenge, as anytime you're making a television show or film, whatever, you want to have control to be able to do multiple takes and of the weather. So how do you do that? You have to build it on stage. So the first thing that we did, I built this kind of all in 3D, which was something I posted the other day, so that we could see. First, I needed to know how much blue screen we needed. We had to shoot the plates while we were there in Murder Valley, so we had the right background. The only thing that made sense was to do it in motion control. So that's what we did. We brought in a motion control rig, and the guys built it. They talk about, that rig usually has, 1,000 instructions for a shot that long, and they had 20,000 for that shot. So yeah, it was pretty involved. But we were shooting in the tanker at the same time. So I was hopping from stage to stage. So was Gordon, trying to jump over and see. Thank God my B camera operator and Jordan Slovan was all over it, and they just built that shot and made it great. So
absolutely amazing. Well, I saw some of the behind the scenes photos that you had posted as well too, and obviously Michael standing in like a trough, getting some of the goop put on him. Was it like a syrup, or what was it? Obviously, you can't use crude oil for safety. What was it? Do you know?
I don't know. No, you can't use the oil. I forgot. I mean, the effects guys kind of jokingly called it like KY or some sort of lube because it's skin safe.
Yeah.
So I think it was some variation of something that obviously needs to be approved to be able to use on your skin, which is not an easy thing to get. So they had some sort of weird name for it, but I'll tell you, I didn't want to go in that stuff. And,
no.
I mean, from the time that we shot the stunt guy kind of going in the first time and trying to figure out what it was like for him and how much he had to hold himself down. And it was a real learning experience. I mean, that whole thing, the whole tanker was, Peter welded that. We have a metal guy on the show who welded that entire tanker interior together and made a 40-foot long tanker interior at the same pitch and angle and everything, with all the holes and everything in it, and with doors. The ends were removable. Well, only half on this low end, because the bottom half had to stay in place to hold the goop.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we were able to pull both ends and come around both sides. It was a phenomenal piece of engineering and welding.
Absolutely brilliant. And one thing I must say too, I'm kind of happy. It may sound kind of weird when I say this, but I'm happy Tom Schnauz is not here tonight, because if he would have heard you talking about Michael Mando and KY in the same sentence, it would have been completely
gone off the rails.
Oh yeah. Those two last time, they're just impossible. So yeah. So Tom, I'm glad you're not here tonight. I know he's going to probably make some kind of joke about this after the fact, but that was phenomenal. I saw some of the dummy wooden replicas that you made first, or that you had your team made, so you could kind of practice some of the shooting. I saw like kind of a skeleton of a tanker, I guess.
Yeah. Well, they built it out of wood first to make sure that the size was right, and that it would work. I don't know that I ever even saw that. I think that was happening while I was on episode 1, and so Gordon was party to it. But yeah, just checking the size and how you would fit a human being in there and what it was like and all kinds of stuff. So.
Yeah. Well, it worked out well. Really, totally believable. I mean, it looked like the real things, which was fantastic. So we're going to jump over to an audio question now from Ragava. Here is his question for you.
Hey Marshall, this is Raghava. It's such an honor to be able to talk to you. I think Better Call Saul has some of the best cinematography I've ever seen, and every frame is like a painting. Here's my question. In many episodes, I loved some of the shots where almost everything you see on screen is black, but there's one or two sources of light from the side or the back of the character that illuminates them in a way similar to drawing with a white pencil on black paper as opposed to a dark pencil on white paper. It makes the shot look very dramatic and interesting. What is usually your thought process while coming up with these kind of compositions?
Good question.
Yeah, it is a great question. I started out in the industry in the lighting department. That's where my heart is, always kind of has been. Lighting is my first love. So I love darkness. I love dark shots. But I also I'm very cognizant of not calling too much attention to the camera, like getting big shafts of light or really dark stuff in a hospital setting, say, or in a warehouse setting or something like that. So I'd never try to shoehorn my look into whatever is scripted. But working with these guys, obviously there's plenty of opportunity to do some really dark, fun stuff like that. So it's just thinking a little bit out of the box sometimes. I'm a little bit spoiled now that the cameras are so much faster. I started out on film, 500 ISO. I routinely ranked that camera up to 2500 ISO, and do things like when Werner met his demise at the end of season 4, I had this idea that because we were up against the city lights, that we were going to just use the city lights as a separator, that would be their backlight rather than actually trying to put a backlight in up there. And thankfully it worked out. But yeah, it's all about feeling natural to me. And that's something that I get to do a lot with these guys. I had lunch with Vince and Peter when I first was offered the job, and they said, we'd rather you we'd rather have to go back and reshoot something than feel like we left something on the table. So that really empowered me to take chances and take risks, and it's like nowhere else I've ever worked with.
It certainly paid off. And when you're on your last visit here, you told us about that particular scene as well too, which was a nice little tidbit for people who haven't seen that, or people that don't know about that scene when Mike takes Werner out to to put him down. And the cityscape that we see behind there, a lot of that was almost like a form of light bright and heat canisters to make them twinkle. And that was an amazing share that you shared with us. I really appreciate that story.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. I mean, that's something that I've done a number of times that works out really, really well. We've used it. We used it a bunch in season 6 too, where we poke Christmas lights through a piece of foam core and put gels over them. And when they're out of focus, man, you just can't tell what you're looking at. And the only thing that's missing is the twinkle. So I finally figured out how to do that with a can of Sterno or some sort of other flame. So
yeah, that's right.
it's pretty cool.
Heat creating that optical illusion that we see from a distance, whether it's hot or just in the distance of vapors or whatever. That's amazing. Coming up with our third and final audio question. This one is from Lori. Let's see what she has to say.
Hi there, Marshall. This is Lori. We started watching The Servant this year, and I was really excited to see your name listed in the credits. First of all, what was it like getting the call about this being an M. Night Shyamalan project? And was the interior stairway and attic shot in an actual home or on a set? We really do love your work. Thanks so much.
No, it's very sweet. It was interesting getting that call. I was actually in Ottawa working on a film at the time, and I got the call that M. Night wanted to talk. And I was having a hard time with my phone, and I kept messing up with the emails, and I did everything I could to lose that job, and I never did. But anyway, so he and I ended up on the phone together and just had a fantastic conversation. And that's what really got me excited, because we're very like-minded visually, and so it was a lot of fun to do. That attic set was actually a build. It's on stage. Everything about that show is on stage, outside of Philadelphia. They built that. I luckily got to be the first cinematographer to shoot it. So I got to kind of set the look in the attic, and was, just had a blast. Working with him was just fantastic. So
I'm trying to remember, because I think when you were here last time, I think you said that was coming up. There's another project. Is that the one? Yeah, actually, no. You said you were going out because you were going back to doing the work for him before you went back to film season 6, and that was kind of the first back to work post-COVID, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I did the beginning of their season 2 at the beginning of 2020, and then we got shut down midway. I think we were on episode 6, and then went back in September. And that's actually, I think I was on with you last September 11th, 2020, right? So yeah, I had just gone back. I think I was in quarantine in Pennsylvania, waiting to be able to go to the stage. So yeah.
My memory is horrible a lot of times, but I seem to remember this, that you had said it was actually kind of cool the way everyone was doing this. You would shuttle back. Everyone stayed at the same hotel. You took the same shuttle back to the hotel. So it was everyone kept in the same area. That worked out really well, didn't it?
Yeah, it actually did. What they called bubbling. They kept us all, they rented this entire apartment building and put us all together. And, I felt really bad for some of the local guys that were literally driving past their homes to be able to get out to where we were all bubbled. But it worked out really, really well. The health and safety people that I have on that show have just been doing such a great job keeping everybody safe. So.
Well, it's nice how that kind of was one of the catalysts, probably not necessarily the catalyst, but certainly a catalyst to helping people get back to work, and people observing from all different corners of the globe, seeing how people are doing these things safely. And look where we are now. A lot of our favorite shows, including this one, are back on TV. Everyone's safe and healthy, which is good. That's the most important thing. I mean, we can wait for these shows, but we have to be careful with people's health and safety. And there was a question from our moderator and friend Renata, but you've kind of addressed it with Servant. But she says, did you have anything to do with the creepy plastic baby in Servant?
Yes, I have plenty of pictures with Scary Jerry. That's what they used to call him.
Okay.
His character's name is Jericho. So they had this rubber baby that they used as a stand-in, and actually part of the character when he wasn't alive, that everybody called Scary Jerry, and he was creepy. I mean, he just wiggled and jiggled, and I've got some great photos on my phone. I'll share with you one of these days.
Okay, that'd be great. A question from Andrea. She's asking if there's any more projects in mind for the time after season 6 of Better Call Saul. Anything that you might be able to share with us?
Actually, I went back, crazy enough, right after we finished, to do one episode of Servant for their season 4. So I did one episode. I just got back to Albuquerque a couple of weeks ago. I was there for, I don't know, a month and a half, but yeah. And then I'm off to Atlanta to start another show for AMC in a few weeks. So yeah, I'm off trying new stuff. It's never going to be the same. I'm so spoiled. I'm working on Better Call Saul. It's just been the opportunity of a lifetime. And I feel very spoiled. So everybody's going to be held to a higher standard, I'm afraid.
I know it's a bar that's raised, and you yourself too. I mean, with what you're given with tools and freedom on the show, you've kind of raised a bar for yourself too. Isn't that sometimes hard when you raise a bar for yourself, and now the only competition, well, there's competitors out there, but I mean, you've got that bar, you've got to beat now of yourself. It's tricky.
Yeah, to a certain extent. I mean, every show is different, and you kind of take them as they come. They all have limitations, and it's just a matter of what the limitations are. We slowly but surely on Saul, they kind of eliminated as many of those limitations as they could, adding more time and more tools, and there was virtually nothing that we couldn't have on that show. So it was just a matter of having enough time to be able to use it. So yeah, but I mean, I'm talking more about, the empowerment for everybody to bring their best game, and that it's just such a great family of people that really enjoy each other, every day. There's no butt heads in the bunch. So it's such a joy. And, it all comes from the top, from Vince and Peter. I mean, they're just such class acts, yeah.
As you don't feel that there's any divas or egos on this. I mean, maybe Tom Schnauz might be a bit of a diva, but no divas or egos. Everyone is encouraging everyone to be better and bringing the best out of. It's like when you surround yourself with greatness, it makes you better too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, the fact that everybody feels empowered to bring their ideas. If you have a great idea on that show can come from anywhere. There's no attitude. There's no egos about it. Anybody can come up with, can have a great idea. The door, it's just, people are willing to listen, and it's always, the conversations are open, and that's how great stuff happens, because none of us are better than we are as a group.
Well said.
As a group, we can make some really amazing stuff together. So,
has there ever been an opportunity where one of the cast has actually said, "What if we tried shooting like this?" Has that ever come up at all, or no?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, there's both Bob and Ray have had some ideas. I mean, they're both very adept at visual language, and should be directing. One of them is one of the episodes coming up very quickly. So yeah, they've definitely had some ideas. Sometimes we say that there's a reason that we can't do that, or we could, or we try it. But yeah, nothing is ever dismissed because of where it came from. So yeah,
it's always good to be open to. I mean, obviously some things just can't be done, but at least hear every idea, table it, and see what can be done. Right? You never know what can come of it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I continue to believe that what makes a great director is not necessarily coming up with all the great ideas, but weeding out the ones that you love from the ones that are kind of voiced, and that's really the secret, for me anyway. Because you'll get a million ideas, and I got a million of them too. Most of them are bad, but occasionally I have one that's kind of okay, and so yeah, that's the trick.
That's a good thing though, is when you recognize, you have a million ideas, and you recognize maybe not all of them are the best, but I'm sure there's ones that you have every once in a while that you're like, what, I got to see this one through this. I know this is going to work. And then you might have to convince the people, the powers that be, but it's nice when you actually see that come alive, right?
Yeah, well, what the thing is that what makes it special too is that it develops. Usually, it's not like one person carrying the ball. This is my great idea, and you really you guys can't see it. It's somebody hears it and they go, oh wow, and then they twist it into something that's even better, and then somebody else molds it into something even better. And so between the directors and the writers and Peter, it just continues to morph until it's the best it can be. And there's no one origin, but it's worked as a team.
Yeah, pass the baton, carry on, and keep it going. Yeah. Here's a question from our moderator, Jen Stevens, and this is a good one. She's asking, how many takes did it take for Michael submerging in the goop? I would hope that would only be one, but I'm sure it wasn't. Do you remember?
Well, let's see here now. I don't remember exactly. I think there was at least 2 from the backside, and then we did 2 from the front side, I'm pretty sure. So probably a total of 4. Because we came in behind him, which is the cut they just cut out right as he's disappearing to the other side. But yeah, so I think we did 2 on each side.
Okay. And this is a question, a further question from Karina, our executive producer. And you and I we geek a lot about cameras off here. We've been texting back and forth, and I told you about the newest Sony I just picked up. Obviously, consumer level cameras, but getting a little bit better than my old Nikon stuff. And the cameras are getting so much better for low light. And her question is, can you, where is this one? Can you ask about how hard it is to work with those dark locations and getting the lighting just right? So obviously you talked about newer technology, obviously not working with film and, higher ISOs, these cameras can just almost practically see in the dark now. But what is some of the secrets of getting some of the cleanest shots with little noise in such dark environments?
Well, again, and don't get me wrong, I love shooting film. I mean, I'm still a film person, millions and millions of feet of film that I've shot. But there's something that's kind of fun in those dark sets that, that you get to do digitally that we couldn't do on film. There's so much noise suppression nowadays that there's some great noise suppression in post. So even if you have a bit of noise going in, it's pretty easy to fix. You obviously don't want to underexpose too much. But usually I work with the production designer and or the props people and the director with coming up with some sort of idea for what might be a source of light. In El Camino, when Jesse's running around with the lighter and then the flashlight, that was all something that Vince kind of came up with, and we figured out a way to make it work and give us enough light, and so it's just a matter of kind of working those things in, whether be it a flashlight or like the first night exteriors that I did with Vince was that long shot that I keep being accused of having been shot in miniature, which wasn't from bridge to bridge. It was that long leads. And we put those two streetlights in there because on the other bridge, because we had to, otherwise it was just going to look lit. So, it's you wouldn't believe how many streetlights we install.
Yeah. Things that aren't there, but they are now. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, for those that don't know, I mean, just take one of your home cameras and try to go shoot some family videos. And if you don't have the best lighting period, your footage is horrible. Imagine what it's like on a set or on a location, and all you've got is a couple of stars as your light source. It's not exactly conducive to the camera.
Yeah, no, definitely not. They don't like it. No, they don't like being that underexposed. I mean, they will try to dig out everything they can, but they do not like it. I get the ability to have the greatest electric and grip crew around. So, I've got, scissor lifts and cherry pickers and stuff with big lights, that we can put anywhere. So, kind of spoiled that way. We get a lot of freedom to kind of do what we want to do for lights like that. So it's just a matter of trying to make it look as natural as we can.
Look back in season 5 with, Gordon and Tom's episode there. Both of their episodes were Mike and Jimmy are in the desert and they end up kind of camping out for the night so they don't break their legs or their ankles walking through holes in the desert. And, you're seeing them with the rocks and everything. And next thing you know, that's now gone to a studio set and the light of the glow sticks and things like that, natural reflective light. It was very, very cool and very believable. Very believable.
I was, I'm a big eye light person, which means, for me, I try to get just a twinkle in the eye because it's amazing how little light you can get away with if you can see the twinkle in somebody's eye. So I was there for all of those shots, literally holding a glow stick myself, up trying to hold it in their eyes as much as I could. But and then I completely spaced out, that the space blanket was going to give me away at the end. I had a little bit of ambience, up in the rafters. But anyway, it still worked out great. We were able to kind of, to control it a certain amount. So. It was that was a fun set. Vince didn't want to sit out there in the desert with the scorpions all night long. And they made an exact replica of that bowl of rocks. It was unbelievably amazing.
I'm glad you mentioned scorpions because Karina sent me this note earlier too, and this is something that Gordon put on Twitter. But there's some hazards out there. Didn't you get bit by a black widow spider or something?
Yeah, but then that's my own damn fault. I got bit by here at the house. I was working on the swamp cooler and climbed down. I think it somehow got into my shirt because as I was folding the ladder, I think my shirt put pressure on it, and that's why it bit me. But it was the day before my first day with Gordon. I got bitten by a black widow and ended up spending the entire day in bed. Paul came to my rescue and covered me for the first day, and I sat in bed with cramps for 24 hours, just in horrible pain.
Oh no! No, are they lethal or?
No, no, not really. I mean, I suppose they can be, and especially if you're allergic to them. But I actually didn't even go because because we were in the middle of COVID. I called the emergency room about it, and they said, if you're not in shock right now, then you're going to be fine. They gave me some things to look out for, and told me what was ahead of me, and so I kind of prepared myself and just had to grunt through it.
Well, I'm glad you're good now. But there are hazards, aren't there? You're in, where you're at.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely, yeah, and especially out there in the middle of nowhere. I mean, that was shot out in Tahajali, out on one of the reservations, way out in the middle. I mean, there's nothing around for miles. So the wild animals control that space.
Yeah,
it's theirs. So we are just visitors.
That's right. That's well said. Here is a question from Blazy Gardner. She's asking, has there been a particular shot that you really wanted, but in the end just couldn't make it work?
I mean, that's definitely happened in my career. I'm not sure that that's happened on this show because we've been very lucky in that, we can carry a lot of extra equipment that we wouldn't normally be able to. Things that like, macro lenses that can focus way down close, that, can be a real surprise sometimes. But I don't think so. I'm not on Saul. We, especially on season 6, like in that shot with the ant that starts on the ant. We rehearsed that on stage days beforehand to make sure that we could make it work as we hoped we could. Because we had to backtrack our way into the sun angle. We had a very small window of opportunity where we were going to be able to really make that shot work with the sun proximity. So yeah, we had to rehearse it and make it right. And there's always some little tweaks, things that you think you can do and maybe don't work quite as well. But it's always kind of in flux and always being developed as we go. So.
Well, that was a great scene. That contrary to or compared to back in season 5 where we had all the ants on the ice cream, where Jimmy had dropped the ice cream cone there, whatever. This one here, we were focused tightly on that one pretty much the whole time. This one, we're seeing the ant macro pulling back to not a wide shot, but there's a lot going on in the scene when you're seeing the dead body. So that was really cool to have everything in a tight focus, coming right from that ant to the full shot. That was quite nice.
Yeah, past his face, and then we see the cousins, see the boots buck in. Yeah.
Oh man,
it was very cool, very cool. But then again, they on the opposite side of the coin, the shot of the two shadows crossing the deck. That was a shot that Michael had this idea for. Like, it just came to him as he was watching people walk across that deck, and so we were like in a scramble to find it and make it work, and it was just phenomenal. So some can be days in the making, and others can be moments, and they're both great.
Exactly. Sometimes the things that you don't necessarily see on camera, but like shadows in this case are nice, and things that weren't shot on camera. And I won't say what they are if people haven't seen the episodes yet, but what happened when Lalo, after the shaving incident, and all of a sudden something happens after that, we didn't see it happen on screen, and you have to put 2 and 2 together. That can be just as powerful sometimes in physically seeing it. I guess sometimes deciding what not to show.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's always tricky, because, you can, I think there's always the risk that you can come up short. I mean, we do shoot a lot of stuff sometimes that doesn't necessarily get used, or they use one or the other, just to make sure that we've got that, because we don't want to have to come back to it. But that was such a great reveal. I mean, nobody saw that coming. I mean, that lift up when those two look so similar, it was such a fun thing to find,
And putting that in the teaser too, boy, oh boy, did they get us on that one. That was something else. That was really good. It had a lot of people thinking right away. Yeah. Here is a question from Michael Eidson, or Elton, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the name right, but Michael says, in the behind the scenes for El Camino, Vince Gilligan showed these diagrams where he had mapped out every angle of every scene. Do all the directors you work with show up that prepared?
I would say they all, on Saul, definitely they show up that prepared. Not necessarily the same way. Oftentimes it's something we've talked about, or we've shot listed in a different way. Vince is very specific because he loves to know going in exactly what his plan is. Because there's, as a director, there's a million questions anyway. So there's enough curveballs without having to try to figure out what your coverage is. So he's very thorough, but yeah, no, they're all very, very prepared and very ready. It's just, there's, it's different ways of doing the same thing.
Everyone's bringing their A game.
Oh man.
For sure. Again, working with greatness makes you better as well too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is by far, I've grown so much in the 4 seasons that I've done on the show. And as a cinematographer, I can't even tell you. I mean, it's really made me so much better at my craft, and a better storyteller. And honestly, that's the thing, Vince, really, Ray and Peter both, they kind of really talk about early on. It's got to be driven by the story. And if you're ever lacking for ideas, go back to the script, because something will reveal itself, and I'll be damned if they aren't correct. There's always something to be found there, and it has to be driven by the story. Absolutely has to be.
There's so many hidden talents as well too. Obviously, that's paramount, the talent in front of the camera. But we've talked about this before with the score, from Dave and his crew, the music that we hear, the audible pleasures that we have, and then what your camera and your people are seeing as well too. I mean, it's not just the writing, it's not just the fantastic talent, it's what we're seeing and hearing as well too. Even when there is no dialogue, it's what's captured. And everyone's always said it a million times, you could pause at any particular scene and print that out on a high resolution printer and have a postcard on your wall. I mean, kudos to every single frame that you capture.
Well, thank you. I mean, I'm telling you right now, I'm just lucky to be here. I am so lucky. I happen to know Melissa Bernstein, who's our executive producer. Her husband worked with me on one of the CSI shows and recommended me to come in on Breaking Bad on season 4. And then I came in at the beginning of season 5 and shot the season opener. And we, maintained that friendship. And then eventually they brought me back for Saul. But it's just been such an absolute gift to be here and work with those guys and have the opportunity to do that show. I learned so much, and then honestly, like I said before, I'm a much better cinematographer for it, no question.
Wonderful. Well, I think it's very contagious. The enthusiasm through the entire from everybody is so contagious. It just inspires everyone to I want to try harder tomorrow. And everyone is learning. That's fantastic. Here's a really good question. This is from Andrea. And for those, there's a lot of green screen and CGI that goes on to various television shows to bring us some things that we would never know are possible, whether you're flying as Superman or whatever the case may be, or, a big, like the big scene with Jimmy out in the desert. With the last shot, Mike takes a shot there in season 5 and the truck, rolls and rolls and rolls, obviously green screen. She's asking, what is the difference between green screen and blue screen?
It has to do with, so actually there's a red screen too.
Okay.
But I've actually never used one. So it separates the color that, used to be for the film color, RGB, that you could pull, a matte for that one strip of film. It really boils down to kind of what else is in the frame. You use blue screen in kind of lower light situations, but if there's something in the scene that's blue, it's tricky to do it. So you end up using green, and vice versa. So that's usually kind of how it's driven nowadays, is whether or not there's something of that color in the scene. But we usually use blue for low light stuff and green for kind of broader light or daylight stuff. Okay,
that's good to know. Now, are either I've worked with amateur style green screen stuff, but are either easier than the other to key out, or are they both about the same?
You know what? You'd have to ask the VisFX guys. I think that the green is easier to key, but it's a little trickier because it bounces, because it's a brighter color, a lighter color. It bounces everywhere, so you end up having to pull green out of everything else. Same thing with blue, but not nearly as bad. And blue is kind of a more natural color than that digi green, so you can kind of sometimes get away with a little bit of it left. But yeah, I honestly, I don't know. I think they're both, this day and age, it used to be, I remember when I first started out, we had to get that screen within a third of a stop from side to side, top to bottom, with a spot meter. Nowadays, they're like, it's
forgiving. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think where a lot of people go wrong, especially amateurs, is they, everyone can go buy a green screen now pretty cheap from Amazon and throw up a light. I mean, lighting is key to get that thing bright, but people tend to want to stand right beside it. And the next thing you know, like you say, that green can reflect like crazy, especially the more lit up it is, and it's bouncing off of you. If you've got anything reflective, like if you're holding an instrument, a guitar or something, forget it. It's ruined because now your thing you're holding is now
Hole in
gone.
your instrument. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
forehead's gone, whatever the case may be, right? Yeah, so get away from that screen, and it'll save you in the end for sure.
I usually ask the production designers for 20 feet minimum.
Oh,
So there
so
you go. That's a good rule to use. I mean, whether it's outside a window or whatever it might be, but 20 feet is a good distance to start.
yeah, we've even seen some of the scenes, behind the scenes footage of Gus's little trailer there, whatever you want to call it, at the chicken farm. That window has been chroma keyed, so we can put on whatever they want to put out there, whether the weather's not cooperating. Well, it's not weather, it's a stage. But I assume that one's a sound stage, isn't it?
No, it's out behind the studio. It's an area that we've used it's a catch-all for
Oh,
kind of anything desert. But so the trailer was back there, but that trailer was established on an actual chicken farm years and years ago on Breaking Bad, and they weren't able to make a deal with the new owners. So we and I may even be gone by now, like a lot of the locations. So it just doesn't exist. I mean, there's no choice but to. So we build a little tiny piece that they walk in front of, but for most of the stuff, especially outside the windows, it's all painted in. Yeah.
yeah, cool. Good. This is a question from Rigby Jr., and this might be a tough one to answer. What was your favorite episode and or scene to work on from Better Call Saul? I mean, there's so many good ones. Is there a particular one that really, I mean, I'm sure with episode 3 of season 6, that must have been up there on the list. But any others that come to mind?
That one was pretty good. I really enjoyed Tom's episode 509 last year, Bad Choice Road. Man, there was just something special about that episode from beginning to end, and he just killed it. I mean, just killed it. Yeah, I mean, they're all great in a lot of ways. Working with Vince is always, the man himself is always entertaining and educational. Learn something new, little tidbits things that he says or does that really better you as a filmmaker. So I'd have to say that maybe episode 8 last year of Vince's episode or Tom's episode last year, 509, or even this episode season 3, this episode 3 season 6 was a heck of a ride for me. So
Those are good for sure. They're good, very good examples. And it's funny, speaking of Vince too, when going into the writer's room, when everything was all done by Zoom and all done virtual, I was led to believe that Vince wasn't necessarily a fan of the technology and connecting by Zoom and all that kind of stuff. And I had him here a few weeks back, and he's got a pro mic now. He's got the headphones. I mean, he looks like he's going to start his own podcast. I know he's doing the Insider, of course, with everybody, but it's almost like he's found a new passion, I think, from not necessarily liking this technology to now loving it.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I shared this with you last time that I was on. And my birthday was 2 days before that, and they had sent me a birthday video from the writer's room, which they apparently were doing, just to keep their sanity. And Vince literally even had like lights, turning on and off. He had like a whole disco thing going. But yeah, they all kind of geared up. They just decided, what, if we're going to be stuck doing this for a year or whatever it is, let's do it right. So yeah,
that's fantastic.
It's pretty fun to watch though. But yeah, Vince with the lights, that was the one that really cracked me up.
I love it. I missed a question from Courtney's reviews earlier, and I think it kind of got answered, but here's another one in the chat from Courtney's reviews. Says, I noticed the final scene in 6-3 calls back to the similar shots of Mike in 210 Click when he was going to kill Hector. Does he often go back, does he often go back to reference old shots? Do you go back to reference old shots?
All the time, especially in a place like Murder Valley where that's so recognizable. I'm not sure if that's generally known as Murder Valley, but that was the name that we affectionately chose for it. But yeah, absolutely. The shack build there, the angles, the shots on Mike. We definitely reference them. We don't want to repeat them exactly, but we definitely want to pay homage and also recall them to a certain extent for the audience. So it's something that's always, I can't tell you how often we have a piece of an old episode that's loaded up on pics that we can reference from anywhere and look at and talk about the shots that were in it and do something slightly different or do the same thing even. It's just a matter of choice.
Yeah, for sure. And it's nice to see Mike's got that same rifle now. Here again in defense, I mean, it's only a matter of days, from the last time you might possibly seen him from season 5 to season 6 with it. But for us as fans, it's nice to see little props that we recognize come back out again.
Yeah, I spent God bless Mark, the prop master on the show. He put up with me asking for longer and longer scopes, and I don't know if anybody noticed, but if you compare those two scenes, Mike definitely improved his scope.
Okay,
it's a much longer. I think it was a 20x scope that we ended up with, but that was something that we all got from Vince. Like Vince didn't like just putting on a long lens and then putting that scope effect over the top of it. So we built these rigs, as a matter of fact, with a Sony A7, where we shoot through the actual we shoot through the scope. Got a lens jammed right up against it, and it works really, really well. It's phenomenal. So that was our gag again.
Oh, you told me that's the camera I just got. I love it to death for kind of a consumer camera. What kind of this is geek question here, Brian? What kind of a lens? Like 35 millimeter, 50? What did you use to get to shoot the scope?
Actually, I think we even used that prime. It's a 16 to 35. Is it? Yeah, it's
okay.
Very fast and because all you need to do is actually focus down on the front element of the scope, which is where your eye. So the reticle's in focus, and hopefully and the background's in focus. So the scope does all the work for you as far as that shot goes. But yeah, that was our kind of workhorse and we also carried a set of zines that we used for both the A7 and Blackmagic. We carry Blackmagic all the time.
Okay.
Shot the teaser.
The Pocket Cinema? Is that the Pocket Cinema?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the BMPCC 6K Pro. Yeah.
Nice.
Actually, it used to be the 4K, but we upgraded to the 6K.
Nice.
Actually, we killed the 4K in the pool. The first, I don't know if Michael made some reference to it, I think on the podcast, on the Better Call Saul podcast, but about the fact that we had to change cameras, but we literally had to send somebody to Best Buy to pick us up a GoPro to finish the work in the pool because we killed our Blackmagic. The bag leaked and off it went.
Oh, no. Yeah, it's one thing to lose a $400 GoPro in the pool, but guys, I'm going to put down the budget sheet. We just lost a Pocket Cinema.
We actually, it's funny that 4K, that original Blackmagic we bought for El Camino, we were actually going to put it in a car smasher and smash it. But we ended up not doing that. So we held on to it and used the heck out of it for, as long as we could, but it was getting a little tired. It was getting a little long in the tooth anyway. So was
it going to be, so you'd see the scene right up until the camera got crushed and then you'd have it, the footage remote? How do you mean when you would use it like that?
Yeah. So, you remember in the junkyard, when we introduced Old Joe in El Camino, there was going to be a montage of cars getting crushed and things being squished by those claws and things like that. So we were going to actually put that camera in there and do it. But at the last minute, Vince decided he didn't think he needed it. What he had was great. And so we passed on it and we kept it and we ended up using it like, I was really blown away. The first time I really pushed that camera was actually when the cousins come, they show up at the chop shop at the beginning in the teaser of 508. We did that shot with a reflection of the water in the foreground with the Blackmagic, and I just set it on the ground. Vince and I did, and it was a real test in exposure range, and that camera just really came through for me. So I was really, really blown away. I love that little camera; it's really good. If
you had to smash the camera, would it have been a kind of a personal pain for you?
Yeah, I mean, there's always a certain amount of sacrilege that goes along with killing a camera, but also, if it's for a great shot, I mean, there's, places that I draw the line, like, a big Alexa, or an Alexa 65, like, you can't even put those cameras at risk, in my book, because if you lose one, there just aren't that many of them around. But but as far as the pocket cinema cameras,
yeah, they're disposable. They're not disposable, but you can go get another one, no problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, if you can run down to Best Buy, we're pretty much in good shape, I think.
Yeah.
Now,
well, I can't say. I mean, literally, the whole crew is standing around as we're charging those friggin' GoPro batteries. We're all like, doo-doo-doo.
Oh, geez. Yeah, they don't charge too fast.
Oh man, yeah, not good.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Here is a comment from Teresa Martinez. She says, "We love you, Marshall, and appreciate your talent, and thank you for setting these shows apart from any other."
Well, thank you. That's very sweet. That's very nice. Thank you. I really feel like, again, I developed a lot of my talent as a cinematographer since I've been working with these guys, and it's really made a difference. And so I feel like I bring them with me everywhere I go now, to a certain extent. So, but yeah,
nice.
It's a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Well, you've gotten we're getting close to the end of the hour here, but you've had a chance to do some really cool creative tricks, in your time. I'm just going to refer to Better Call Saul here. Are there any tricks that you've wanted to do and you have maybe implemented? Maybe we haven't seen anything yet this season, and you don't have to tell us necessarily what they are, but are there some tricks that you've wanted to do and maybe you did get to do this season?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. Yeah, it's hard to say that's. I don't think that's necessarily true. I mean, there's always kind of tricks in the bag and things that are my go-to. Creating backgrounds where they don't exist. I love sneaking stuff in to make it feel like there's more going on outside. I love using little twinkle lights and things like that to make it feel like there's a whole world outside. And that's my favorite thing, I think. And, Tom's alluded to that, or did allude to that first time I was on, that, we actually outside in one of his episodes, outside the SUV during the conversation, I made a whole cityscape out of apple boxes out there because they were out of focus and they look like buildings,
Wow.
And the mic on the sniper on the rooftop of the sniper rifle, with the whole thing with the light bright twinkle lights. Yeah. So that's one of my things that makes me happy, is making stuff that look a bit more polished and like it's got a lot more going on. It could be an essentially more expensive build than it necessarily is. So we've been able to play with pretty much every piece of equipment that you can imagine. So I'd say not necessarily these days. I think I've tried them all. I think pretty much most of them have come up in Saul, that's for sure.
Good. Here's a couple questions that come through from Preston Rutherford, and one I missed. That I'm just going to cherry pick some questions here. I like this one. He's saying, "Hey Marshall, have you gotten the opportunity to utilize those ginormous LED screens now being used in shows like The Mandalorian? And if not, would you have any apprehensions around using them? Didn't you do something with a taxi scene or something with LED screens or something in another show? Was that you?" Like a cityscape on LED screens, but with a cab, or maybe not. No, maybe it was Michael. It might have been Michael doing that. I'm not Michael Slovis. I'm not sure. But
yeah, I mean, I've used some LED screens for sure.
Mm-hmm.
We used to use them, the poor man's version of them, like we did on El Camino when Jesse's driving the El Camino out through the gate in that early shot, when we're matching that final shot of him in Breaking Bad. I used some big mirrors and some TVs that were reflecting in the mirrors to give us a little bit more motion in the background on stage. Otherwise, it gets a little stale up there.
Mm-hmm.
No, I've done some big blue screen, or I've done some big LED screen stuff recently, and I have no hesitation. I think they're a great way to go because it's like being in the environment. They're kind of self-lighting. They light the scene for you, and they feel very natural. So I think they're definitely the future. That's for sure.
Does it have to be like the highest resolution? Like, I'm not sure if it's like the OLED or whatever they are. Does it have to be like the really high res to capture it good, or?
So they make those LEDs now. They're like in half-meter squares that are usually, and now they're like 2.4 millimeters, where they talk about the dot pitch between the LEDs, and that's kind of state of the art these days. And boy, oh boy, you get back from that stuff, and you can't tell at all that you're looking at an LED screen. So. It's, I mean, you have to make some educational guesses and know when things aren't working to try to figure out what the problem is. But yeah, they are fantastic. I'm a big fan.
Oh, fantastic! Have you watched any of the Mandalorian and things like that? I like that show. Obviously, being a Star Wars fan, have you seen some of this cinematics from that?
I have seen some of it. To be honest, when I'm shooting, it's really tough to
watch.
To watch. So I haven't seen as much as I should, but I know, the stuff that they build, and they were actually going to build a volume stage here at the Netflix studio. Actually, I think they're still doing it. One of those big it's a 270-degree stage with a drop-in ceiling where everything is LED, and you can, because they were going to do Masters of the Universe there, which actually shut down before they went to production, But yeah, those volume stages, they're everywhere now. And that basically means that they're just big LED stages that you have 270 degrees of LEDs. That you can,
oh, wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
As we let you go here, I don't know if I asked you this question last time you were here. And this is Tom's deal. Did I ask you about the smell of the Gilliverse? Do you remember that?
No.
Okay. All right. So there is, as we take off into this rocket ship, into this Gilliverse every Friday night, we go to this place and there's a smell there. It might be good, might be bad. And it smells like two things. This is Tom. And Tom's shoes are not one of the smells, but it smells like this and this. So there is a right answer. So what do you think it smells like in the Gilliverse? It smells like this and this. I'll let you guess.
I would say hot dogs and iced tea.
Okay. Close. I guess if we're going to go pork, I don't even know if there's any pork in hot dogs. I don't think there's any meat in hot dogs, real meat, but it's bacon and fear. And that is right from Tom Schnell's. I think he puts bacon on his cereal in the morning, bacon and everything.
Oh, really? Well, you know that Vince eats very well, except when he's shooting. When he's shooting, he eats hot dogs during the day, and he drinks iced tea. So that's why.
Okay.
That's why for me, those were the two.
Okay. Well, that'll be an honorary for a future guest coming on. An honorary answer: hot dogs and iced tea. So that if they get that, we'll give them a Hector Bell on that one. Listen, Marshall, thank you so much for joining me again.
Oh, my pleasure, Eric. Really.
Absolute pleasure. And
fun talking to you.
Yeah, we'll touch base again towards a wrap-up season. We'll get a few people back, a few at a time on the show, too. We'll have a little bit of a party, and I'll reach out to you as well, too. And,
that sounds like, because I would love to talk more about stuff that's coming up. So
good.
So it's always a little limiting, but yeah, no, that would be great. We'd love to see you again.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to say goodbye to you off the air, and everyone, I hope you have a fantastic evening and a great, safe weekend. Be sure to join us again next week. We're going to be on next Friday, but we'll be off the following Friday, and we're going to be busy for the next quite a few Fridays after. We've got some great guests coming up. So in the meantime, if you're new here, please hit that subscribe button down below. We promise to work just as hard to keep you as a subscriber as we did to get you. And we will see you right here next week on Inside the Gilliverse. Until then, cheers.
Thanks again for tuning into Inside the Gilliverse with Eric Broadbent. Be sure to check back each week for more great discussions and interviews with cast and crew from Breaking Bad, El Camino, and Better Call Saul. Please like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends.